Hello and good day, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Omar Davis, and you are joining us for the Me Time web series, where we're going to spend time talking about mental health, wellness, how you get it, and actually the process of what it looks like for specific people whenever they're doing that. Now, um, we've had some amazing guests on the show thus far, and we're just going to keep that rolling. The goal here is not only to bring you information, tools, but also to show you that no matter where you are in your life, no matter, if you're at the top or at the very bottom, the first things first is you have to find space to take for yourself. You have to find that me time. You have to learn what it is to have a relationship with yourself, not only through let's say your career, your emotions, and, even your character. What do you want for your goals? What do you want in life? So with this said, we're just wanting to provide for you many ways, many people who do many things, and for you to be able to take those and make them your own me time little special things, or to find something new. We are going to jump right into it. We have a really amazing dude who is going to be coming on to not only help us to understand this concept, but someone who I've been watching ever since I've known about him in the background. And, once I was able to meet him and even work with him, I got to see exactly what he does and how many people he inspires. So I'm going to actually let this wonderful man come on. Jason Rosario, my man, good to see you. How are you? Bless.
Omar, blessings, brother. Thank you for having me, man. And it's always humbling to hear that people talk about you when you're in the room because you're like, what do you do, right? It's a little bit awkward, but I appreciate you and I appreciate this invite, especially because of what you just said, right? You were a critical voice for me, or in a person and a resource, quite frankly. Just 18 months ago, when you talk about being at the top versus being at the bottom. I found myself
Yeah.
in a really dark place, and you and I had a lot of conversations, and you kind of helped me through that. So I just want to say thank you for you.
Word.
I'm grateful for you publicly for that. And so
Yeah,
here we are
word.
having a conversation in a
That's
different
what's
way.
up.
So
Yeah, right now I'm having a lot of emotions that I'm feeling right now because this is the first time he told me this. And so
mm,
I appreciate it. And I'm super grateful for you too, brother. I was only looking to build and be there for you, man. And just listen, that's all it was. Just listen and share ideas. So I'm honored to know that our conversations had some momentum for you to get to that next level. That's beautiful, brother. Let's just give people a little bit of who you are. I don't like butchering people's intro and bio, so I just want them to hear from you, Jason. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your work affiliation. What's going on with you?
yeah, well, Jason Rosario. I am a born and bred New Yorker, Dominican heritage, and I'm currently the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at an advertising agency called BBDO. And I'm also the founder of the Lives of Men, which is a social impact agency that kind of was dedicated to really combating these stereotypical norms around masculinity and manhood as it relates to men of color in particular. And so, but overall, man, I'm a seeker of truth and light, and wanting
Yeah.
to always examine myself and how I show up in the world. And so that's who I am in a nutshell.
Oh man, that's beautiful. And that self accountability part and the examination. I mention that a lot for not only for myself, but for the people that I engage with is you got to be the scientist of your own body and mind. Like you have to be. And so that's beautiful. I just wanted to point out for any of you men out there, especially men of color, if you are not aware of Jason and the work that he does, it's really powerful. I say go on IG. And what's the IG handle, Jason?
It's at the Lives of Men.
At the Lives of Men, and
Mhm.
also at Jason Rosario, I think is just
Yeah,
flat, right?
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Go check that out because the tools and the information and even the community, even look at the people that follow them and then go look at what they do. I swear it's going to be a rabbit hole of inspiration and of men of color just really picking each other up. So go ahead and go on that journey because that's the one that you want to go on the IG. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on. As we know, this Me Time series is about, ideas of me time. And we've actually had some conversations with people who don't necessarily feel that they're the best at me time, or some people that have mastered it in their own life. So it's not really about like the how good you are at me time. It's just about that idea of getting it. And so with everything that you do in a day, and I'm sure, you know what, let's actually talk like what do you do in a day, Jay? Like what does your day
Mm.
look like? And I'm almost certain that it's probably as jam-packed as mine.
Well, is that question kind of my routine or more of like what I do for work? What do you mean?
Well, yeah, I guess like we'll get to the routine. Let's first
Mm.
ask like what do you do in your workday? How does that look for you?
I mean, it varies, right? But my job at its core is to help lead diversity at BBDO, right? And that means not only creating a vehicle or a framework for the agency to be an inclusive agency for people to feel like they belong, to build culture, all of those things, but then also influencing the creative output that we produce for our clients, right? So making sure that
Yeah.
it's inclusive, that we're advising our clients on kind of how they're shaping their marketing campaigns around inclusion. And so it really does look different on a daily basis. One day I could be having, a fireside chat with a CMO somewhere, or
Yeah.
and the next day I could be kind of literally in the weeds with some of our creative teams talking about scripts and casting and production and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it really does vary, but that's what I'm excited about.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's actually really cool too, because it seems that even in that role, it allows you ability to like channel various minds. You know, you can be creative, you can be analytical, you can be the problem solver. So you have a couple of different roles and hats that you're wearing in that role, it seems.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think when you think about what I do, it's I love it in that I'm able to bring my fullest self in terms of what I care about, right? I care about making an impact on people's lives. When you think about purpose, my purpose in life, one of them is, to be the highest expression of love and being in service to people. And so that's what I do on a daily
Hmm.
basis is, being in service to people. And then I also get to exercise my creative muscles as well. So, I think I have the best of
That's
both
great.
worlds.
Yeah, man. And I think that that's a really beautiful balance that you have there. And even in that balance, if that's what we can call it, right? But I know that there are times within that integration process of the day that, there are times where you reach that capacity or you do get overwhelmed or you have stuff that happens. Like, how do you address these, I guess, normal work conditions, as we stand right now, in your daily routine as far as mindfulness?
I mean, I guess it's the way I start my day is really important. I think I'll talk about some of the things that I kind of build in terms of hacks throughout the day that really
Yeah,
help me
nice.
kind of stay
Nice, nice.
grounded. But it's just how I start my day. I start my day, with meditation and prayer. Really kind of setting the intention for how I want to visualize the day. Something as simple as making my bed, gives me that kind of initial, task, right? Like, okay, I've done my bed, what's the next thing, right? Like it slowly build into that. And I try to ease into my
Yeah.
day as much as I can. And then throughout the day, man, it's interesting because again, every day looks different. But there are things that
Yeah.
do specifically to make sure that throughout the day I take time, right? So I schedule out my lunchtime, right? So I try to the
Mhm.
extent, kind of block off an hour so that I'm away from the computer to actually
Yeah.
eat my lunch with no phone, no computer next to me. I build in
Yeah.
focus time, so deep work focus
Nice.
time. So, two, 3 times a day, I kind of block out 35 minutes to 45 minutes to like actually do work and not send emails and like maybe read something or, catch up on something that I want to learn and develop. So, those are just ways that I kind of, hack these me time moments into my day
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm keeping on track.
That's great, man. That's amazing. That's actually one of the 30-minute focus and the 45-minute or the 35-minute moments of focus. That's something that I learned whenever I was like really trying to understand that 4-hour work week. And whenever I started setting a focused intention and I saw it in my mind step by step and in the specifics that I wanted to see it happen, yo, the work was seamless, bro. Like it was, and you know what? Thank you for saying that because I'm gonna go ahead and put that back into my day because a lot of times I'll do it in the morning time specifically, and by like 1:30, I've hit that mark where I've just realize, oh, here's lunch, right? So same thing, put everything away, eat your
Yeah.
food. But even then, while I'm digesting, I think I'm just going to just tackle that one, like 20 to 30 minutes of just focused meditation, because that's like a perfect time when your body's in rest and digest. You're starting to
Hmm.
like get those hormones flowing. The chemicals in your brain are starting to like really process all the stress and release it. And so focusing that intention, man, that you just gave me something to look. It's added it to the list, man. I love that. And I think that we're gonna have to maybe include something like that, as far as that like little work hack, maybe on a social post. That's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
But with that said, the integration that is happening right now because of the concept of COVID and quarantine and not being able to go anywhere and staying in a box or whatever, structure you live in, that has obviously shifted the way that we do things in our norms. A lot of times we were talking about this concept of work-life balance and how before you may have had that where it's like you went to the office and you stepped away from life or work or home, and then you stepped away from work and then you went into your home, but and trying to find that, that dance in between how much you take and how much you bring with you. But right now, like, that doesn't actually exist. The work life balance is absolutely out of the window. And so we've been saying the integration. And so I'm curious to know, with COVID and everything that's happened, how has this integrated with you? Like, how have you integrated, I guess, with this whole new norm?
Yeah. Well, I'll say two things on that. I consider myself very, very lucky that I don't currently have to figure out what my work-life balance is, right? What I do for a living is I love it, right? And so I don't
Yeah,
ever
man.
feel like I'm at work, you know? But I also think that's a product of the last kind of maybe 2, 3 years of my life where I've been on this journey of looking at ways to converge. If I am going to be working, if I am going to make a living somehow, and if I'm going to trade my time for dollars, how do I increasingly converge those worlds so that they align with my values, with my core values, right? So forget about work-life balance for a minute. It really is about aligning with who I am as a person.
Yeah,
And
man.
if not, then I think that's, you have to really look at that. So that's the one thing. The other thing is, there's this a lot of dialogue around kind of this great resignation, as it were, right? Like
Yeah.
everybody's quitting their jobs, but it's actually in recent months has been kind of rebranded to the Great Awakening, and I think that speaks to what we're talking about right now, which is it's not just that people are burnt out, and it's not just that people are like finding new jobs and quitting their jobs. It's just that COVID has created this opportunity for people to wake up and realize that one, work and getting money and chasing the bag isn't everything. How else can you find fulfillment in your life? And so they're quitting their jobs in order to go find that, and in order to go find that alignment that I just talked about. So I think
Yeah.
that's important, man. I think that's important. So
Yeah.
I think the last thing I'll say there is, for anybody that's looking to figure that out in their lives, just pay attention to what brings you life, right? Like, and think about
Yeah.
who you're becoming and who you want to be, and if it is your job helping you get there, right? Is what you're doing on a daily basis getting you there? And if not, then you have something to think about.
I really love that you said that. And I want to just maybe highlight that really quick, because a lot of times when it comes to the bubble of success in people's mind and how they see you, they don't necessarily get the whole journey. So whenever they see you in this position and they see someone like yourself who, you've embodied who you are and you've blended that with your, let's say, how you make money, your monetary gain. And that is literally the essence of what life should be. And even for myself, I'm grateful to have created a business and a platform that I had the ability to do exactly that. And I didn't realize how blessed I've been this entire time until after COVID. No lie. Like, it took that madness to get me to see exactly what it is that I have and how I've cultured and cultivated a life that a lot of the things that were happening with my colleagues or my friends or my family with the corporate world and being an employee, like they went through a whole nother struggle that I didn't go through. And yet, but I went through a whole nother struggle because I lost two businesses. I lost both my offices in Manhattan. So, you know, it's amazing though. I just wanted to point that out because I now finally understand what you're saying. Like if you would have said that to me 2 years ago, I would have been like, man, I can't wait to get there, right? I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing.
Well, I'll
But
say
now that I'm
this.
in a place, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it.
No,
I was just gonna just highlight you more.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that's COVID has been an opportunity, quite frankly. I mean, I don't want to discount the fact that a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people have lost their jobs, lost lives, lost
Yep.
family members.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of people that are thriving. And I think it's the root of that is, we have used this as an opportunity to pivot, to grow, to go within, to expand, right? And to
Yeah.
change. And I think that's really the lesson that to take away here.
That's beautiful, and you're absolutely right. My relationship with Omar as a human, but also as a soul and as a consciousness, got so deep during COVID that I knew that everything that I needed to do at this point was to literally choose peace. Like I needed to choose it within my mind and within my
Yeah.
heart, and then I needed to only choose it. I don't got to try to fix nothing. And so I just stayed in that place, and the amount of healing that my consciousness went through, and the amount of certainty and clarity that I had when everything else was seeming to just lose its mind. It was so profound that I was like, yo, this is, and like you said, this has to be the Great Awakening. This has to be a moment where people are literally just taking time to say, you know what, I matter. Like I matter. And everything I've been putting my energy into is somebody else's matter, not my matter.
Mhm.
And so it's beautiful to see that people are actually coming together. And thank you for mentioning that too, reframing it from the Great Resignation to the Great Awakening. I think that's really important for people to really hear and switch their minds on. But with that said, I know that COVID has had an impact on many people. Like we said, we want to make sure that we are not being deaf to the people that have lost and the people that have had trauma in this experience. So understand that through this trauma and through this experience, that it is something that is to empower you and to move you forward. And if you take it as that, you will find that it is a propeller instead of something that pushes you down. Now let's move on to the next question. Um, so just like three tips other than what you've already stated about self-care. What what does self-care look like for you, or what three things do you do to provide self-care for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I always say that I always lean on is when you can, and if you have the opportunity, cook with actual foods, right? Like go to the market, buy some food,
Yeah.
buy some fresh veggies, and like get in the kitchen and start cutting them up because that alone, that act of being present with the food takes you out of your mind and puts it, and you're
Hmm.
channeling all of that energy into something that you're going to consume, right? And so cook with real food whenever you can in the kitchen and then hopefully,
Yeah.
and in the best case scenarios, offer that to someone, right? Share a meal with someone. I think the second thing
Yeah.
is lean into your creativity whenever you can. I think we're all creative individuals in our different ways, but create something, right? Think about how you can bring
Yeah.
something to life that might be of service to you, right? It could be something that you draw for yourself, or it could be something that you can, create for the world, right? It might be a business, it might be a
Yeah.
platform, it might be a podcast.
Yeah.
So that for sure is something that I've leaned into. And then the third thing for me, I'll always lean on this is journaling, right? Like always
Facts.
writing things down. And journaling has this kind of stigma to it, right? Like, oh, I'm not a 3 page, journal writer, right? Like sometimes your journal entry could be a couple bullet points. Sometimes it could be a
Yeah,
sentence,
literally.
right? Sometimes it
Yeah,
could be
man.
4 or 5 pages, right? So, but it's a really good tool to not only reflect on your journey thus far and how you've grown, but also gives you real insight into patterns that you might be repeating that you have to really address. And so, journaling is a really important.
Yeah, it really is. Those three things are pretty foundational too. Just as far as like when you think about the human concept and what releases specific chemicals or energy within our body, and even the concept of energy. A lot of times people hear that and they think of it like as a misnomer of like, oh, that's that fruit stuff. And I look at them and I'm like, what about me looks fruit for one? And for two, it's literally wavelengths. It's electricity too. I was having a conversation with one of my students the other day and expressing to the student that you produce electricity with every thought, every muscle movement, every breath, and you produce electricity because your body is running without you knowing it at every moment. Now, if you were to look at a light bulb and look at this light bulb on for 24 hours, and if I were to tell you the energy in that light bulb is powerful, and you were to say, oh, that's fruit, you sound crazy, my dude, like, because you know it's energy. And the energy within your body, the electricity within your body, we do channel that, and we are emitting waveforms. So whenever we actually channel into the food, it's literally blessing the food, right? That you can literally charge the food with good energy and
Yep.
blessings. And that's why we even have sayings that say like, man, they taste like you put some love into that. Or they put their heart and soul into it. They'll say like,
Hmm.
damn, your heart and soul?
Hmm.
Yeah, it must be really good if you put all that into it. So I'm grateful for that. And the journaling part is magic as well. You know, I just have to say it. Writing things down for me in my life has been so significant. In fact, I just opened up one of my old journals that had dreams from like 2012 up until 2016. And as I'm scrolling through here, I'm like, dang, these dreams are intense, my dude. And just the journaling of my dreams. And then I found another journal that was actually old and it had a lot of trauma in that shit. So I took it and I burned it.
Hmm.
Just let it go. I burned it all because that's not me anymore. I don't need to hold on to this journal specifically because I've passed that phase in my life. And me burning it was more of like, you know, a testament of letting go for me as an act of service to myself. So I'm grateful that you mentioned these things because specifically, um, I have been cooking more in my family. I had to take from like October until December. You know, we were hustling real hard and trying to get things going. So I had to let the wife know, hey, I ain't gonna be cooking these 3 months. But you know, getting back into the kitchen, actually around the end of December, it was quite amazing, man. Like, you know, just like you said, like crushing up greens, you know, like cutting fruit, cutting things and just putting it all together and then watching my family enjoy it. Like it really is such a I mean, it's kind of a spiritual experience when you think about it. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to some things. Now, is there any grounding techniques that you've come across that you've actually found useful in your life that you can possibly speak a little bit about?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not going to say I'm a super expert on grounding techniques. I definitely could develop some more techniques in that area, but something as
Yeah.
simple as breathing. So I'll tell a quick story. So I suffer from sleep apnea, right? And so
Word.
I struggle breathing, and I sleep with a mask.
Hmm.
And that is, of course, it's a physical ailment, but it's also a very spiritual one, right? When I think about that, I hold a lot of grief in my lungs. And so,
Mm.
yeah. And so when I speak, sometimes I might run out of breath. I might be really passionate and I forget to breathe. And so I was doing a meditation recently and I took a deep breath and I found myself stopping, but realizing that I have more capacity for breath in that moment. And I was
Mm.
like, why did you stop yourself from breathing? Breathe in more. And so in that moment, I did. And I was like, man, what would it look like? And so in that moment, I literally gave myself permission to live, right? If you think about it, right? By taking in more breath.
Facts.
So I was like, man, what would it look like for me to give myself the same permission to live fully in every area of my life, right? So
Wow.
to me, that's probably the most important thing, right? It's just making sure that I'm breathing, making sure that at times I even have an alarm on my phone every hour. Take a deep breath, right? Like breathe, and
Yeah.
like feel like a belly breath. And so that to me
Yeah.
has been incredibly helpful as I kind of remember to connect with myself in that way.
Yeah. And you know, something you said was really powerful, man. You have a lot of grief in your lungs. Um, I started to really understand not only energy but spirituality and just the human concept when I was in school for Eastern massage therapy. Well, I was taking an elective, which was Eastern medicine, and learning about all the pressure points, what they do, how to heal somebody, but how to also be a ninja, um, like all these variations. And something my teacher said was so profound. He was like, "Imagine your body is like a ever-ending ball of potential of energy and emotions." And sometimes in life, you get stuck on some one emotion. Let's say, and he said grief, let's say grief. And you hold on to that grief. And every time something reminds you of that grief, it's like you validate the expression of grief for yourself. And then you make it a part of yourself. So now, like over time, you become in this place where you're actually embodying grief.
Yeah.
And there was this time in my life where it was a very traumatic time for me. I was my oldest son was 8. My youngest son was 3. No, he was 2. And I was going through a lot with his mom, where it's like the conversations they were having, it's like I didn't have a voice. I couldn't speak. I had to always yell just to get my point across. I was consistently angry at both of them for constantly lying about anything. And then I was having a very tumultuous conversation and experience with the person that my wife now, and the person that I was with at well, same person, but she wasn't my wife then. But it's like we were experiencing, I was experiencing, not we, I was experiencing so much trauma from like not feeling like I had a voice, from holding on to so much guilt and shame from the things that I did and to hurt my son as I messed up so many times raising him. And then having this tumultuous relationship with his mother where I was consistently always having to yell. My dude, I did this for 3 months. And at the peak of this, I had an emotional breakdown. And the next day, I like got bronchitis. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, that's like at first I thought it was just because I was yelling, it was because of this, but then I started looking into the energy, the spirit. And then there's this wonderful book by a lady named Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And in this book, she actually has been able to understand, or not understand, but jot down how certain ailments have specific concepts that are attached to them. And so I go to look up bronchitis, and it literally was exactly the explanation of what I was experiencing. It was grief within your family, the feeling that that you don't have a voice, and constant anger and irritation with people that you love. And I'm like, what the fuck? As soon as I seen it, I was like, I made myself sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So
at
there.
the end of the day, I had a choice, right?
Mhm.
I had a choice. I could have not reacted.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
So there's a book called "The Body Keeps the Score," right?
It's
And
one of my
it's,
favorites.
I'm sure you've read that too.
Yeah.
But I also read something that was incredibly powerful that I think again we're talking about it as we're kind of alluding to it as well, and that is that oftentimes for survival, right, our bodies, our minds, and our hearts delegate pain and trauma to our bodies um,
Mm-hmm.
because we need to survive, right? And so think about that mental
Facts.
transfer that happens and that's why we talk about, where you're stressed and you feel it in your shoulders. You might have an ailment,
Yep.
causing
Yep.
cancer, but all of that, comes from somewhere. I think that's the concept, right? Is the idea that for
Yeah.
our own survival, our minds, unless, in order not to have a mental breakdown, has to delegate all of that pain and trauma somewhere. And oftentimes is in different areas of our bodies.
Yeah. And then the emotion is only the chemical. And so
Hmm.
once I grasped that, like my emotions are chemicals, I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. Because if you look at a chemical and how it looks, it doesn't look like anything, but it has so much power over my choices. Like
Hmm.
it's this tiny little, like it looks like string wrapped up and somebody just threw it on the table. But that controls my life. Like what?
Hmm.
And so it empowered me. And that you're right, that book, that The Body Keeps Score is amazing. And the concept that you're speaking of, it's absolute. But that's the thing that we're starting to learn now with our science, with our MRIs. Like
Hmm.
the MRI scanner allowed us to see that Alzheimer's is literally a condition of hypertension. Like you had too much stress in your entire life to where the cortisol built up so much in your brain where it started to break down the neurological processes of your cell structure. Like That's literally what happens in medicine, and we know this.
Mhm.
And so it's like, well, all those people who have it now, we examine their life, and the doctor's literally telling me the pattern of her life, of how much stress she had and how it took the course of her brain. And I'm like, you can see that, like, just by looking at it. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Mhm.
That's crazy. And so for us
Absolutely.
to bring that into a conscious, like, and that's, I think, what all this is about, like our our science of quantum physics, our history of what we like to call spirituality or sacred, information, and science are lining up now. And the one thing that is not an actual platform within these two things is fear. But right now, fear is like all we got, and everything
Mhm.
is fear, fear, fear. How are you limited? How can't you do this? How can't you do that? What can't you not do? Like, that's all the questions we have. And so right now, I feel that this great realization that people are having, that, you know what, fear cripples you. Science tells us that stress and fear and or distress harms my immune system. It harms my physical body. It makes my mind not work. It makes me feel terrible. So we should not consistently do fear. We should
Mhm.
consistently be in a state of parasympathetic nervous system, which is relaxation and chilling out.
Mhm.
So now that we got that chance, right? You saw everybody chilled out. People were so chill during COVID. I know people that didn't shower for 2+ months, homie. Like, they were just like, for what? for for
Insane.
what? And so we got so chill, we got so comfortable, that we had to see that stuff that started rising. And then once we saw that, we realized that, we need to take care of ourselves. And so again, it's a really beautiful mesh of how everything is happening. I didn't lost my questions. Let me go ahead and pull them up
Mhm.
real quick. To move forward, because we can't talk about this all day. Let's keep it centered back into these concepts. So when it comes to uh, everything that, well, you know what? There's a specific question I want to ask, because I want to keep space so that we can actually dialogue about this. But something that I've asked everyone, and for me, it's a very meaningful question, and I constantly check myself with this question. But what would you give? What advice would you give your younger self?
I think it's simple. It would be to trust yourself. And I believe that so
Right.
much that I wound up tattooing that on my thumb. Trust yourself. And the idea that, we spend so much of our lives taking on, goals and ideologies and points of views that are not ours, that only when you get to a certain stage in your life, if you taken the opportunity to kind of self-examine, like you said, that you only then realize that, man, perhaps I hadn't been living my life, right? I might have been living the life that other people wanted me to live, whether it's in the pursuit of a career or marrying somebody, being in a specific
Yeah.
relationship. So I think for me, it's earlier on, I would have told myself, trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust your moral compass, trust your that inner voice, trust that because it won't lead you astray. And I think, I say intuition specifically because we're two
Hmm.
men here talking about, these things that are so esoteric, and oftentimes we talk
Yeah.
about intuition as it relates to just women, right? Women's intuition. But
Yeah.
men have
Exactly.
intuition, right? And I think it's just a matter
Facts.
of us having been separated from that over time. So I think it's just a matter of tapping into that again, reconnecting to that. But I would say that
Yeah.
that's my number one advice to myself is to trust myself
That's wonderful.
in
That's
all areas
actually
of
a
my
really
life.
powerful. Yeah. No. That's really huge. That's definitely something that, for me, for sure, it wasn't until I almost turned 40, which was like last year, that I actually started trusting myself. Because and then it's funny, because as I am now 40 and freshly 40 in December, I actually do feel different. Like, I actually do. It's like my mind is more focused on being selfish and worrying and thinking about what's best for Omar, and being kind to myself. Like, literally, like, I don't deserve to treat myself terribly. Like, I don't. And I don't have the time to waste listening to the world's badgering of what I should think about myself. And so I just like really just let that go, and that trusting yourself, man, it's huge. I heard this really cool thing, and I'm curious on your opinion on this. Um, they were saying that based on the energy that one emits, right? The feelings that we give off, that in the concept of time and space, that you can actually like tell yourself a message in the past by focusing your intention and telling yourself like I love you from the past, right? Or from the future to the past. And it actually does something to your now state, which is fortifying that condition that maybe you didn't feel so much love in the past. And now that you're speaking to yourself in the past, and you're giving yourself the love that you're speaking to. It was crazy. I was like, whoa, that's
Mm.
crazy. That's some quantum mechanics that I don't know if I'm ready for right now, but I definitely want to get into it. Um, the intuition part though, I think that's a something that men need to actually start talking about more. And you are right. It has a really negative stigma and connotation to it that is based on women, and also um like mysticism. Like it's like some like weird stuff that we don't really know how it works, but we do really know how it works. It's the enteric nervous system. It releases a lot of serotonin. That's pretty much the thing that you need to do anything. The enteric nervous system has its own has its own neurological system. So it has its own brain. So you have a brain inside of your gut, and it thinks through feelings. And that is our intuition. It's the feeling we have. So we have a system that knows how to think through feeling, and feelings are waveforms. They're not like physical matter. You can't like hold it in your hand. And so one day I was studying and it just hit me. I was like, holy shit, the gut brain and the feelings are our intuition. But whenever I hear intuition, my mind says something else. But now that I think of it as a like a system, it gives me the ability to trust it more.
Well, we've
To
always
say like,
called it.
oh
We've always known it, right? We've always called it follow your
yeah,
gut, right? Follow your
yeah,
gut. But
oh
what you're saying, but you're talking about the science behind, why that term has it didn't come from nowhere, right? And so I think that's what
yeah,
you're
right.
talking about.
Yeah, literally. And once again, our old sayings or spiritual concepts and our new science are starting to blend, and
Mm.
it completely makes sense now. And now that we can, I mean, I think we're really blessed and really at a really wonderful time to be alive, because we're like at the pinnacle of a really important change within the human species and consciousness. And we're watching we're watching a old world shift into a completely new thing that we have no idea where it's going to go. Like I literally had no idea that this was going to exist in 2000. Like I had no clue. So
Mm.
it's only getting further and further. But with that said, again, we can keep these topics that are non, traditional, and we can go all day with these. But let's keep it to the self. And we only have a couple of more minutes left, so I did want to bring it back to, us as leaders. I know that based on everything that you do, not only with BBDO and the position you have now, but even in your life with the places that you affiliate with, the communities that you associate with. Um, you're doing a lot, and in that position I'm curious to know, like, for you sometimes may hit a point where you know that you need to take a break, but your employees and your staff, we know and we can see that they don't know that stuff. Like even with some people on my staff, they don't know that. Like they don't know that they should take a break, and they don't know that they should have that me time. And so what advice would you give any of your employees who are feeling burnt out?
I mean, I think in addition to some of the hacks that I shared with you earlier, I would just say the idea that you have to burn yourself out, or that you have to, excuse me, work through
Hmm.
your fingers and your bones, right, to show that you belong, that those are myths. There's something called John Henryism, right? This idea that, and it was rooted in kind of this fable of John Henry, this older enslaved African man who was tasked with building a railroad. by hand, and he was competing with a
Yeah.
machine to do that. He actually wound up beating the machine, but the moment that he put that last nail in the ground, he passed away. He died from hypertension, right? But it's this
Yep.
idea that we have to work ourselves through these traumatic experiences, just to show that we belong and that we deserve. That's a myth. You don't have to, right? And I think you just have
Yeah.
to know you're worthy because you are and because you belong. And then PTO is well earned, so take it. And
Exactly.
a self-care day doesn't necessarily have to be because you're physically sick, right? Take your PTO days when you need a mental health day. So, I would say all
Yeah.
of those things, and hopefully, people feel they don't feel as guilty to do that when work is piling up, right? I think it's important to do that for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a really big shift, including having someone like yourself in a position like that. And I just wanted to honor you, not only as someone that I know personally and that I admire, but I also wanted to honor you as a Black man who has put yourself in a position that a lot of people do look up to you, and a lot of people do see you, and for you to be representing us in such the stature that you do is amazing. It,
Thank
it
you, bro.
really is, bro. And we're redefining that concept that people want to always put on us as people or men of color. And we're coming with empathy. We're coming with understanding, and even more so, we're coming with with that fire and that magic of taking care of ourselves and putting ourselves first. And
Mm,
so I just wanted to just take a moment to just recognize you, because it is someone like yourself who is making the cultural shift that we need in the corporate world, because that's really what it is. There are a lot of people who feel that way, that feel guilty, that feel the pressure, that feel that they may get fired, that they feel that if they don't actually, or if they do say something, then suddenly something's wrong or they're not an adequate employee. And so by you being a pillar for a lot of people in this position, it allows them to break those concepts down. And so I'm honored, I'm grateful. And even this show alone, man, I can't wait for you to see, everybody else that's going to be on with you. You guys are all inspiring, and you're all doing some amazing things in some wonderful places. But before we go, we definitely want to let people know again where you are, how they can reach you. If anybody out there even wants to, contact Jason because you think that he speaks very well, holler at the boy. But
yes,
Jason,
sir.
let them know where they can find you, man.
Thank you, Omar. So on all social platforms, it's Jason two underscores Rosario, or at the Lives of Men. And if you want to book me, I'm available. No, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just do a quick search on LinkedIn and hit me on there. But let me just take a moment to return the love, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate this platform, and what you guys are doing. I think we need it, and I'm just grateful to be in your orbit as well, and call you a brother. So continue to
Yeah.
do what you're doing, because although you may not see the daily wins and the daily benefits of what you do over time, I'm sure you're seeing the growth and the impact. So thank you for what you do, bro.
Yeah, man. And as someone who does it, you already know the work, and it's working. That's all I
Mhm.
can say is it's working. And
Amazing.
with that said, you know, once again, for all of you out there, you may need to watch this again and go get them hacks, go get them tools. Check out Jason on all platforms. Give him a follow. Tell him you saw him on the Me Time show. And even then, tell him what's up, but don't be trying to blow people's DM up, y'all. Like, let's just still be respectful. Come on now. Nah, I'm messing. But still, I'm serious about that part. Don't blow people up. But with that, Jason, once again, thank you so much,
Thank you, Omar.
bro. This has been great. Until the next time we are on, you guys get that me time. If you need some extra me time, you can always go to crashbell.com because we got resources. We got online meditations, some free ones and some paid. And we also have the Me Time self-study course that you can get into and dive right in to get that self-accountability and connect your mind and your anatomy so that you can super hyper accelerate your consciousness. Again, Jason, thank you. Everybody out there, peace, be well. Until next time.